Welcome to the Jonas Club Management VAT Reporting in the Middle East webinar. It's recently been announced that the Gulf Cooperation Council has agreed that its member states will introduce VAT from the 1st of January 2018. This rate will initially be set at 5%, and similar to most VAT systems, there will be a range of exemptions. Throughout this webinar, what we'll do is cover what is VAT, how to set up VAT using Jonas Tax reporting, how to attach VAT to your revenues and your expenses, how to report on VAT, how to do the VAT adjustment entries and all the various utilities that are available to you within Jonas, what you need to do before January 1st, and then what you need to do after January 1st. So what is VAT? VAT is value added tax, which is a tax levied on the sale of goods and services. You pay VAT on the goods and services you buy from other businesses, and you charge VAT on the goods and services you sell to others. The difference is what gets paid to your tax department.
So most of your setups for VAT will be done under the tax reporting menu. So the tax reporting menu can be found under administration, then tax reporting. In order to be able to use VAT, what we'll need to do is set up tax group codes, tax reporting dates, tax reporting codes, tax exemptions, and then also VAT on any deposits if you are a club that uses the banquet and catering module. So what we'll do now is jump into Jonas, and I'll show you exactly where to find those things that we just went over. So the tax reporting menu is located under administration, and then tax reporting. The first thing that we talked about is a tax group code. So what you'll do is click on tax group code, and there's your two tax groups there. So again, these are things that would be remitted together or would go on the same form. So we have one here for out of scope, and then one here for VAT. So all it is here is a code and a description. Going down this menu, you also have your tax reporting dates. So tax reporting dates, once again, are organized by tax group, so you can have different dates for different groups. And all it is here is when you select the tax group you're setting up the date for, you can just preset your tax reporting dates. To set up a new one, you just double click on set up a new tax reporting date and then enter in your date there. So I think our next available date would be March 31st. So you would need one of those for every time you would need to go ahead and run your tax report and remit your tax to the tax department. Then we have tax reporting codes. Tax reporting codes for all of your different rates, all of your different exemptions. So what you do is you just set up a new tax reporting code, put in the tax code in the description, as well as put it into a group. So your group, of course, is going to be either VAT or out of scope. For tax that is included in VAT, you do want to make sure that you're checking off the report sales as VAT checkmark, and this is what actually puts it on the report. And then lastly, your exemption setups. So once you've set up your exempt codes, all you have to do is come in and select the exempt code next to VAT exemption reporting code. So these VAT codes that we've now set up must be attached and integrated into the Jonas system in all the different areas where taxes might be applicable or VAT might be applicable. So we'll start with the club management module. In Club Management, there are 4 spots to attach your tax codes, the first one being the Basic Club Profile. So you can find that under Club Management, Club Setup, and then Basic Club Profile. Choose your club, and then over here you can find a button called Taxes. Down the row that says VAT, you just need to attach what the rate is, and also what the tax report code is. Do that for every program that's eligible for VAT, so this includes your dues or your fee billings, your lockers, your minimums, your miscellaneous charges, as well as any record club invoices. Make sure that the rate is assigned as well as the VAT code, and then you can hit OK to save it. The second spot in the club management module is your interest codes. So again, it's club setup and then interest codes. If VAT is applicable on interest, what you'll need to do is pull up your interest code, and then where it says tax report code and VAT percent to charge, that's where you'll put in your actual percentage as well as the tax report code. The third spot that you want to put your VAT code in is in the item groups. So item groups are attached to point of sale sales categories. They're also billed through processing, chip processing. So for each item group that you have in the system, you want to make sure that the VAT code is attached if VAT is applicable. So for example, restaurant food, want to make sure you're putting in your actual VAT percentage as well as the VAT report code. And you'll have to do this for every item group that you use at the club that is eligible for VAT. The fourth and final spot in the club management module where you're going to attach your VATs is the fee billing schedule. So it'll be club setup, then fee billing schedule. Every fee billing that has a VAT associated with it needs to have the VAT tax code. So what you'll do is go to tax rules, and you can put in your percentage as well as your VAT report code if it's different from the default. So if you do have maybe some fee billings that are VAT exempt and some fee billings that are not, the default would be put into the basic club profile under fee billings, but then for each individual fee billing schedule, you want to go ahead and put the VAT rate in the tax rules. In the point of sale module, there's also two spots to make sure that your VAT codes are attached. The first one would be under point of sale, then system setup, then system parameters. Choose taxes, and here you'll see your list of tax codes. So each of these tax codes contains different rates and rules for your different categories of items. You'll notice that sometimes you will have multiple of one tax code, so you can see here I have 3 tax code Gs. This is because each of these have a different effective date. So every time you have a tax rate change or something changes with your taxes, you can actually set up an effective date so that as of that date, that's when that change starts taking effect. So when you are making these changes to include VAT in your system, you want to make sure that you're using the most recent effective date. Within each tax code, you should have a type V for VAT, description of VAT as well as the rate, and then you want to ensure that your tax reporting code is attached to the one that we set up in the administration menu that would line up with the tax rate that you're setting up here. The second spot to check your tax rates in the point of sale module would be by individual sales item. So there is a such thing as sales items that can be overridden by what we call package revenue. Package revenue allows you to set up different tax rates or different tax rules. So when you go into these items and you click package revenue, you'll see that there is actually an override of the GL account and the taxes. So if you do have any that are overriding that and have tax types set up in them, want to make sure that you now have your VAT with the rate or amount and the tax code associated. You'll have to do this for every tax code and every item that VAT would be inclusive of. In the banquet and catering module, there are 2 spots to worry about attaching your VAT codes. The first one being under administration and then tax reporting. There's a spot called VAT on deposits setup. So what this will do is if VAT is applicable or if deposits are applicable for VAT, this will take that 5% out of the deposit, and then when you actually bill the event, the VAT will be applied towards the VAT calculated on the total event. So what you need to do here is just set up your VAT tax rate for deposits, the tax reporting code, which GL account you'd like the VAT to go to, and go ahead and hit OK. The second spot in banquet and catering is the system profile. So if you go to banquets and catering, files, and then system profile, if you are not using the POS tax rules, if you have that unchecked, what you want to do is make sure that your tax 1 has your VAT percentage, the description has your VAT, and then here in the reporting code, you have your VAT reporting code attached. In order to use VAT in the Marina Management module, what you first need is a company tax rule. So you can set this up under System Administration, System Setup, and then Company Tax Rules. You'll need one for exempt and one for your standard VAT rate. This is very similar to your point of sale tax rules, so it does have to be type V for VAT. You can put in your description, your percentage, and your rate, as well as the GL where you'd like these VATs to go to, and the report code that you've created in the first step of this webinar. Once you have that created, what you'll do is go to Marina Management, and the first spot to attach this is under Files, and then Utility Codes. So for each utility code, you do want to attach that tax code that you just created to make sure that it does start pulling out the VAT. The second spot that you need is under Files and then Birth Types. So for each birth type, again, you just have to attach that same tax code. The third spot is under Files and then Storage Types. And for every storage type, you will need to go in and attach the tax code that's applicable. And then lastly, under each transient type, transient charge, what you'll do is for each transient charge that you have at your club, go in and attach your tax code, which will be down here. Lastly, for the hotel module, what you'll need to do is attach your VAT code to each billing or receipt code that you use. So when you go into your billing or receipt codes, which you can find under Hotel Management, Setup, Billing/Receipt Codes, and you'll see a list of them there. You will need to go to Billing Surcharges and actually attach your surcharge code of VAT with the rate of 5%. What you'll also need to do under the Options tab is make sure that your tax reporting code here is your VAT tax reporting code. So now that we've talked about how to attach VAT to your sales, what we'll do is move on to the expense side of it, or the accounts payable side. So to ensure that the VAT is a default for your company when you're using accounts payable, what you'll do is go to Administration and then Set Up Company Profile. Choose your company, and then over here where it says Taxes, you want to make sure that your VAT percentage has the 5% there, and that the VAT reporting code has the standard VAT reporting code that you've set up under tax reporting. Once you have that, it is down to the individual invoice in order to make sure that you are charging the correct VAT or paying the correct VAT. So when you're entering your invoices in, so accounts payable, processing, and then record invoices/credit notes, what you'll do is enter your invoice as normal, making sure that you are putting in the pre-VAT amount as the purchase amount. And then you have a spot here for VAT amount where you can actually go ahead and pull out the VAT amount that's on the invoice. So in this case, for a total of 100, the VAT amount there would be 5. Ensure that your correct tax reporting code is associated with that VAT amount. And if that is the flat rate for this invoice, you can go ahead and just say OK and post it. If you have an invoice where maybe there's multiple purchase amounts that are eligible for different VAT rates, what you can do is use the tax distribution screen. And this is where you can actually put in the purchase amounts that are eligible for the different rates and assign them to their appropriate VAT codes. So for example, in this invoice, maybe we have a purchase amount of 50 that actually wasn't VAT exempt or not out of scope for VAT. But then we also had a purchase amount of 20 that actually was eligible for VAT. So we would go in and put in our VAT rate there, and then attach it to the appropriate VAT code. So this is how you would distribute multiple amounts on paid by one invoice or one check to different VAT codes. So now that we've gone through all the spots to attach your VAT codes and ensure that your system is set up and ready to go to start using VAT, you want to make sure that you double check and ensure that you didn't miss anything. So you can do this by running the Company Tax Reporting Utility Report, which you can find under Administration, then Tax Reporting, then the Tax Reporting Utility. You have the option of printing all tax setup, so this is everywhere a tax is set up in the system. You have the option of printing blank, so if there is a tax rate with no tax reporting code associated, and you have the option of printing just the ones that are set up, not including the blanks. So whichever one you choose, you will choose your option and then hit either print and view or export, or you can print this report, and what it will do is give you a report of all the spots in your Jonas system that have tax set up, what tax reporting and what rate they're using, and if they are blank, what's missing. So for example, here we have VAT, but we have no percentage or amount. To report on VAT in order to do your remittance to the tax department, what you'll use is the company tax report. So this is a report that shows your sales and your taxes by individual tax code and also by input versus output. Input being your accounts payable and output being your sales, so anything from banquets, marina, hotel, point of sale, club, anything that you've charged your members or your guests. So the company tax report will report on all transactions up to and including the reporting date. So if you recall, we did set up our tax reporting dates. The company tax report does run on those dates. When you run this company tax report, you do actually have the option of closing the period. Once you close the period, it means that any transactions that happened before this tax reporting date will be posted in the next tax reporting period. So even if I do close the period of December 31st, like I would be doing here, and I backdate and put something in for, say, December 20th after I've closed, that December 20th transaction will be included in next month's or next quarter's tax report. You also have the option to summarize by audit number. So what this does is it just creates a really quick way for you to balance the general ledger VAT control account. So instead of seeing each individual transaction, which for something like a point of sale end of day update could be many, many lines, you just see one line for the end of day update SJ number, which is how it would actually go into your general ledger account. So it does make it a little bit easier for you to be able to reconcile. You have the option of running this report in detailed or in a summary by area. So detailed gives you by the chit and sales category for point of sale sales, gives you by the item group for club chit processing sales, and it gives you by the fee billing. Summary for area just gives you by area and then by tax code. So it just really depends on how you prefer to read the report. Definitely go ahead when you're doing this for the first time. Run it both ways without closing the period. And then when you find one that you like, you can go back in and close the period after. So to run this report, what you can do is either hit export and send it to Excel, or you can hit print and view it, print it, email it to somebody. And I'll just give you a little sample of what it will look like. So here you have by area, by tax code, the date, the audit number, the reference number, the type, the category, and then the amounts. So you have your sales, your tax, and your total. And these are our inputs. On our outputs, it comes out a little bit more detailed. So we have the date, we've got chit numbers, we have chit references and categories for the items on the chit, the sales amount, the tax, and then the totals. This also will give us a grand total at the very bottom of our output minus our input taxes, which is the amount that you would be sending to your tax department. After you've had the chance to run your company tax report without closing the period and you can have a look through it, you might notice that some things are incorrect or need to be adjusted. So there are two different spots where you can adjust your tax report. The first one being the Edit Tax Reporting Data option. So it'd be under Administration, Tax Reporting, and then Edit Tax Reporting Data. This is used when the incorrect tax code is selected. So this is not used to actually change amounts. It's used when maybe a tax code was associated, maybe your standard tax code was associated with a sale or a purchase when it should have been a different tax code. So what you need to do is first of all select whether it's an input or an output, and then find the tax code that it was put under. Find the date. And then the audit number will be on your report, but if you do hit search, it will pull up anything eligible. If you select that transaction, then you can actually go ahead and change the tax reporting code on it. So maybe it should have been the reduced rate of 1% versus the standard rate of 5%. Once you've changed it and you've selected your new tax reporting code, you'll hit OK, and it will change the way that that transaction reports. If you need to change the actual amount, what you'll do is go to the VAT adjustments option. So it's under Administration, Tax Reporting, and then VAT adjustments. Once again, it looks very similar to the last screen. You're choosing whether it's input or output, what tax code it was put under, the sales area, the transaction date, the item group. So maybe the sales area. This is free form entry. So you'll have to type this in from the information that's on your report. Same with the transaction date. The item group, which again is totally free form, sales category, reference number, and you can actually change the tax amount there. So the information that you would be keying in here actually comes from your tax report. So you need to make sure that you're keying it in exactly as it appears on your report. Prior to January 1st, 2018, what you'll want to do is download the latest product update from the jonassupport.com website in order to make sure that the VAT wording shows up on your system. So you can get that by going to jonassupport.com and logging in, and then clicking on the Product Updates tab. If you scroll down, you should be able to find the General Release Version Product Update, and depending on what version you're currently running, you want to make sure that you download the appropriate product update. This is what makes the VAT wording show up on your system and ensures that you are ready for January 1st. The second thing that you want to do prior to January 1st, 2018 would be to make sure that you have your POS tax rules set up with the effective date of January 1st. So if you recall, we go to Point of Sale, System Setup, and then System Parameters, choose Taxes, And then for each tax code that you have in the system, you want to make sure that you have one set up with an effective date of January 1st, 2018 that contains your VAT as well as the tax reporting code. This does not mean that you're changing anything right away. Because of that effective date, none of this will actually be in effect until January 1st, but it means that you do not have to be at the club prior to opening to make sure that this change is done. One thing to keep in mind is that after January 1st, all of your prices are going to be tax inclusive. So this means that whatever prices you have in the system now will have 5% backed out and put to VAT. So what you can do is actually change your POS item prices to raise everything by 5% if you are going to choose to pass that cost on to your guests. So if you go to point of sale system and then system administration, there is an option here for change item prices. You can change the prices by amount or percentage, which is what we'll be doing today. And what you want to do is modify the price changes to and make the effective date January 1st. You can modify it by a percentage of 5. So everything will be raised 5% so that now when you do back out that 5% for VAT, it means that the club does not take any hit to its revenue or sales. On January 1st, 2018, when you get to the office or when you get into the club, what you'll want to do is run what we call the tax rate change utility. So under administration and tax reporting, there is a spot for the tax rate change utility here. Choose your company, and what you want to do is change the tax type. The old tax rate would be 0, and the new tax rate is now going to be 5. You also want to change the reporting code to be your new standard reporting code. So this will change everything that is not POS. If it has a 0% in the VAT tax rate, it will now be changed to 5. So you want to make sure that this gets changed, and it will give you a report that should cover your whole system. Once you've done this, you'll want to go to your banquet and catering module and make sure that you're recalculating those bookings. So the reason you're recalculating the bookings is because the tax rates have now changed. So the amounts on the bookings are now incorrect. You want to recalculate them so they include your VAT. So recalculate the booking so that they do recalculate and include that VAT in each booking. You also want to make sure that all of your club management setups are changed. So just double checking, making sure that everything that was supposed to be covered by that tax rate change utility got covered. So if you recall in club management and then club setup, there are tax rates housed in the basic club profile, in item groups, in interest codes, as well as fee billing schedule if it is being overridden by fee billing schedule. Also in the company profile, so administration, setup company profile, there is a spot to put in your default tax rate. So you want to ensure that you do have the 5% there as well as your new standard tax reporting code. If you are using any kind of standard form in Jonas and you want it to now include VAT, you want to make sure that now your POS chits, your banquet and catering invoices, and your member statements are using or can support using the VAT lingo. The ones that do support the VAT lingo would be under point of sale, system setup, system parameters. So for your chit program, you want to make sure this is the one you're using, the Jonas UAE. That would be our standard. If you have a custom chit program, so if you come into this and you see your club name here instead of the Jonas name, you want to make sure that you are contacting Jonas support to ensure that it will support the new lingo of VAT. In terms of banquet and catering invoices, you want to make sure that they do support the lingo of VAT as well. So the invoice that would be our standard one that would support that would be under select forms and form options. You can see we have a long list of invoices here, and the one that is standard is the GJNP 30UKD. So if you do come in here and again you see your name, your club name associated with the invoice design, or you are using something that does not say VAT standard or VAT standard detail, contact support. Want to make sure that they edit your custom invoice to match and allow for VAT. Lastly, on your club member statements, so under club management, club admin, and then select club form designs, you want to make sure that if you are not using the statement design here that ends in GU, which is our Jonas standard, that you contact support, and that way you can put in the wording of VAT. It should be noted here that Jonas does not print any information in Arabic.
This has been the Jonas Club Management VAT in the Middle East webinar. Thank you so much for joining, and please feel free to contact support at jonasclub.com for any further questions.